So I'm Eleanor and this is my colleague Chris, and today we're presenting, as you said, on behalf of Thermal Packaging Solutions. So I'll first just give you a quick brief overview of TPS and what we do overall, and then I'll move on to just discussing about our container liner insulation kits as well, just in more detail. So we're a UK-based manufacturer and supplier. We manufacture everything from really small insulated envelopes to thermal pallet covers to container liner insulation kits. We supply our products to those primarily within the food and pharmaceutical industry, if they're trying to protect their temperature sensitive goods whilst in transit or in storage. But what we did notice about the container liner kits is that they were primarily being purchased by homeowners. So we spoke to many of these customers obviously before they actually purchased, and they had containers, and they were installing our container liner kits to protect personal belongings and to ensure that their container remained at an ambient temperature all year round. They were protecting anything really from furniture to machinery to tools, so it wasn't really a set thing that they were protecting, but it was mainly homeowners. So we did realise that this is obviously a massive market, which we hadn't considered at the point when we brought these to the range, which is why we're presenting to you guys today. There's quite a few of your customers are obviously demanding these kits, and also a lot of storage sites would definitely benefit from using these as well. So I'll now pass over just to my colleague Chris, who will tell you a little bit more about the different materials that we supply these container liner kits in.
So our container insulation kits are supplied in two different materials, really depending on what the use of the container is for. First off is our Thermopack double material. This is our most popular material for containers as it tends to be very easy to install. The material itself is only 4 millimeters thick and consists of a true aluminium foil either side of an air bubble membrane. This is equivalent to around 55 millimeters of polystyrene boards and helps reduce the risk of condensation from forming. We found this material is commonly purchased by the storage trade to keep customers' goods protected from frost and excess heat. And then there's the next one is the high performing material, EcoCool Expert. So this one's kind of like a foil blanket, if you like. It's made up of 6 layers of reflective foils and recycled wadding materials. In its open state, it's around 15 mil thick, but it will compress down to 5 mil as it's like a blanket. This product is equivalent to around 75 mil of polystyrene, and again, also helps reduce the risk of condensation. It's most commonly used for sending temperature sensitive goods and containers which are being converted into workshops or living spaces.
Now, what we are aware is that Graphotherm is the industry standard condensation treatment for containers, but we would like to therefore just explain a couple of different key differences really just between Graphotherm and our container liner insulation kits that just might be of interest to you. So firstly, in terms of for Graphotherm to actually set, it does need to be at a temperature above 10 degrees. So in winter, that might mean that you need a heat source to enable it to set. Whereas with our kits, there's no setting time at all. All you need to do is just make sure that the container is actually just dust-free and completely dry just before you do the install. We've also heard that after around 7 years that the containers with the Graphotherm in can also be susceptible to mold just due to the antibacterial agent in there. So if you are planning on then selling the container on after, it could in turn just lower the resale value. Whereas if you insulate with our kits, then you can actually sell them for a higher price because they can be marketed as an insulated container.
Yeah, so if applying the Graphotherm yourselves in-house, you tend to need full PPE from head to toe. You also require high pressure equipment, which is very difficult. And also the low pressure equipment, which is a bit cheaper, is a lot harder to work with too. With our kits, you don't really need any protective equipment at all. All you need really is probably an extra pair of hands just to help you with it. I guess many of you will make the decision to insulate X number of containers in one go. If Graphotherm did come out and did the install for you, I believe they want to do a minimum of 10 containers. and you may not need to do that many. We don't tend to have a minimum order quantity at all. We do next day delivery to the UK, and you can deliver one to site direct if needed.
And just finally, then the feedback we've had from quite a few people who have made the transition, who previously used spray foam, is that Graphotherm is quite unpleasant to work with, and they do say that ours is, because of its flexibility, it's quite easy to install. So really, we're just asking that give one of the container liner kits a try. As I say, next day delivery. So if you ever just got one, trial one. As I say, we welcome any questions you have, and also I'll just leave up on the screen here just a little bit of feedback from one of the storage companies that did make the transition to ourselves, and just a couple of their comments. But yeah, we welcome any questions that any of you have. I'll leave that up on the screen for a second.
That's great. Thanks very much, Shelley and Chris. That's very interesting indeed, and a nice presentation.
Thank you.
Obviously, we can open up for questions now. Just give me an idea. It's using double-sided tape to stick it to. Is that right? Is that how it's applied? Yeah,
yes, correct. Yeah, there's a built-in double-sided tape on there, which bonds to the container very well.
So
how long does it take to install something like that?
We'd say around an hour or so, with 1 to 2 people. And as the rolls arrive basically pre-labeled, so it'll say a wall section. It's already got the adhesive on there as well, so you don't need to apply that. And then we would recommend 2 people, but around an hour or so for a 20-foot.
Yeah, it's Sarah Manning. Sarah's just said, is it one complete piece? And I think now you've just more or less answered it. It's sort of in sections then.
Yeah, so they're basically in rolls, and they just labelled wall, roof. But yeah, they are in separate sections.
Yeah, we do also have the option to insulate the floor too, which would then obviously protect all of the container. It'd be fully sealed then.
So I suppose the thing is are we expecting the actual customers of self-storage units to specify this, or is this something you think that self-storage operators might, I suppose, which comes first, isn't it? Is it something you expect the self-storage operators to push to their customers, or the customers might?
I mean, to be fair, it's storage companies are purchasing them now. That's really who we're aiming this at, to be honest, because the ones that have moved over, that's who the feedback on here is from. They're really happy with it. But I mean, really, anybody that's looking to protect it for any of those reasons, then so whoever really. But yeah, I would say this was mainly for the storage companies who are using Graphotherm at the moment.
A couple more questions, some good questions coming in from Connor Bath. What is the lifespan or longevity of the product?
So the container liner kits are designed to last the lifetime of the build. I mean, this material is also used in things like homes as well. So it is very, very durable. It's you don't need to remove it. You wouldn't need to replace it or anything like that at all. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think you've covered it, to be fair, Al.
I suppose it's damage resistant, I suppose, isn't it? There's a couple of questions coming up actually. Chris Osborne saying, how tough is it? Will customers rip it up when loaded or unloaded goods? So it's kind of what I was thinking as well. Is it fairly resistant to the usual? Yeah,
so the insulation itself is covered in an LDPE, so a plastic backing, if you like, which does help with its rigidity. Obviously, if you are putting furniture in there, it can pierce the insulation at points, but we do supply the kits with enough foil tape, which you can just patch over, and the foil tape is as reflective as the foil that's used on there. So you wouldn't be, perishing the performance or anything like that at all by doing so.
It would have to be like quite a sharp object to actually damage it. You
wouldn't be able to rip the insulation at all. It is quite tough stuff.
But there's 2 types, and you're not using the thicker type mainly for the self-storage. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So that's mainly used for example, it's used for a company which send glass bottles on ships, and what it does there is it stops the liquid from freezing inside and actually shattering the bottles, and keeps it at more ambient temperature throughout. So there's that, and then also if you're going to convert it into, I mean, obviously now a lot of people are using them as offices. So we've had obviously a few people that are doing that for themselves, the homeowners, really.
So we're going to come back to the question of pricing in just a moment. One other question earlier on from Andy Wilkins. Do you sell just a roof kit?